days at Paul Green. Do you benefit from them in any way?
Yes, of course, I benefit because the interaction as a sometime musician, interaction with other people is can be positive, and in this case, I would say it's more positive than other experiences that I've had in Cornwall. For instance, playing with bands who have a very definite sound and set list and so on of their performances, and actually tend to play cliched, middle of the road pop type music. And
Yeah.
that leaves very little sort of unexplored areas.
Yeah, so this is actually it's such a loose kind of arrangement, isn't it? You can go anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. With um, working with the lyrics that I find I have a method of sorting through the offerings that you present me with sometimes in usually looking for the shorter ones and the most succinct lyrics, and also I tend to look at the lyrics, the ones that attract me more, are some of the ones that paint a slightly darker picture. That type of imagery, it suits a little bit more of my forte, if we could call it that, as a musician.
You talk of imagery. Do you think it's important that the lyric gives you an image of some sort?
Yeah, of course it is. If you look at like a lot of pop music that relies on, sha na 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 na, I mean, what sort of an image is that, as opposed to, for instance, one song that I did a couple of weeks ago at the last session had the images of a flooding river, and maybe it was at night, even moonlight or something. It could have been because the railway tracks are gleaming in this picture, and beside the river wide, and the river is flooding. Obviously, the swollen waters sweep the debris um, to the side, and so at once it's sort of like turbulence and desperation and fraught. The people who are ever going to be in this situation are probably reflecting that in like possibly emotional turmoil or something like that, and a bleakness and stuff. So, and a lot of the music, I mean, my real forte in music is more like what is now called Americana music, and a lot of that is has a foundation or a history of like broken hearts and broken dreams and stuff like that. So I immediately go for those sort of lyrics. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, an image is important. Now it's interesting because some of the other people I've interviewed, I mean, for instance, Michaela, she starts making a tune up before she's got to the second line. She's making a tune up from reading the words just. Now that is so different because you read the whole lyric through, and you're then besieged by images which are triggering a possible way to develop the melody. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think really it's more like certain key words pop out to me um, about like a certain setting, like that it seems to be in moonlight, or there's something in the deepest sea or something like that. And those things are determining a tone, and my abilities are very limited. I can do some stuff, but I certainly don't have a a sing along pop sensibility of music writing. It's more, you know, this slightly more tragic stuff is what appeals to me. And I think it sometimes works well if it's presented in in a very simple format. I think the lyrics then and the scene they described come across better. They're not they're not hidden behind a lot of elaborate arrangement or anything like that. They're just stated pure and simple.
Yes, I think that though we can't get you quite enough, that your hit rate with good tunes is very high. But also, you get the emotion of the lyric across so well. And I just wonder whether it's because you draw and paint as well, that in your responding to the imagery, you're actually getting underneath the lyric better in order to express its emotion.
Yeah, I think really it's that I am, you know, as a musician, a little bit narrow. I have a great interest in jazz and in Americana country music, and certainly the, you know, avant-garde in a way of like certain types of so-called classic music, um, but I'm really not like a rock and pop type musician. So the those images, uh, you know, sometimes I'd like to be able to take it further away from the structure of playing a guitar because you know that is sometimes quite holds things back rather than the way poetry or just recitation is actually freer.
Well, you have played on two of the best ones we've done. One was saxophone, you played, and another one was clarinet. So, you know, you are switching between, you can draw, sing, play a wind, and a stringed instrument.
Yeah.
That's giving you a huge versatility within the narrowness that you say you have.
Well, it is still pretty narrow what I can do. And the thing about playing, you know, with the thing about the wind instrument or a clarinet or sax or something like that, it's purely accompanying what else is going on, but maybe lending a certain color that's a slightly different color than maybe where the lyrics are going, or maybe it's enhancing the color, whatever. Yeah.
Yes, you see, you use the word colour. So again, you're using the visual sense a lot
Hmm.
in developing your melodies. No, that's interesting because it's different from other people.
No, is it really?
And it's interesting to talk, you know, will be to other people who haven't spoken to yet about whether it's coming from the auditory or from the meaning or the sound of the words or where it's coming from. But it's
Hmm.
always slightly different. The sense hierarchy is rearranged differently in us.
You know, there was a song that I did a couple of weeks ago, uh, and it was there were certain names of women, and it was a very short song, and they had very attractive features. Jocasta or whatever her name was, one of them had, you know, full lips. Annabelle had flowing hair, blah blah blah. They all had these wonderful characteristics, and I just immediately saw a real philandering, almost pimp type of guy singing this song about all these women that he has, you know, and he's got a fancy suit and everything, and like that. And I just saw somebody like uh, a character like Jelly Roll Morton or one of these people like that. So I tried to sing the song in that way. So maybe that's true. Maybe I did see a face and an image first, and then try to somehow fall into that role with the
Yes,
song. Yeah.
that's actually subtly different from what I was thinking. Is there you're getting an image of the person who's singing it, as opposed to the imagery struck by the words.
Mm,
So
no,
that's
no,
unusual.
no, no. It's the same thing because the guy who I imagined singing it
Well, what about in the
by the
railway
words.
cleaning? What about in the railway track? Do you imagine who's singing that?
Oh yes, I did that. That's what really appealed to me because it had so many aspects of like the music that I've become very involved with in the Deep South and the tradition in America, and the tradition of like in Appalachian music and even black blues and stuff like that. They're always singing about swollen rivers. That's an innate part of the South about tragedy and lives being swept away and the hopelessness of everything like that. So that one, I jumped on it right away because it felt fairly because I spend quite a lot of time in the deep south now because I perform there a lot and I play there and I sort of have a band over there. That sort of imagery really grabs me.
Yes. So if you look again at this one, which you've just um, did last time we met,
Uh-huh.
when you presumably read the whole lyric through, didn't you?
Well, I
Before
scanned them
you
through. I
scanned them
didn't.
through.
I didn't think I was going to have to sit an exam on the lyrics right after
Well, you
I
are.
scanned them through, and it just like I could just feel. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I want to try
Yes,
this
but
one. That's all.
then you go on the guitar and what do? You play some chords.
Mm.
That's where it begins, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just look for. I think actually more like I think really I look for maybe the tempo because in this stuff that's quite lyric based, again, there isn't a lot of na 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 in it, right? We haven't got a lot of that or repetitive choruses or things like that. If you cannot get the lyrics to come across in a definitive way, I mean, that's what the key to it all is to me
Yeah.
in my limited way of looking at things. So I scanned through the lyrics here, and it just immediately seemed to me that it instead of writing because it's about a river. Well, we could have a river going and bubbling along,
Yes.
but no, it's also about people and this sort of it's almost like the river is wide and I cannot cross. Or, one more river to cross. It's like a spiritual, you see, about
Yes.
like that what the river it isn't really stated that the object the two people the woman and the guy standing on the river, it doesn't really state that they're on opposite sides and trying to cross, but it sort of feels like that,
Yeah.
to me.
Yes.
So
So the tempo is what you're going for
I'm
first.
going for
So
that because
what does
about
tempo mean?
the meter of the song, about whether it's going to be
Ah, the speed.
whether it's going to be oh, the river was wide and the babadoo
Yes.
babadoo lived that I can't get across, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Or the river is wide,
Yes.
that's right. You see, they have different mood and feeling.
Okay. Yes. So that's where you're going in through the speed of the song. That helps you then.
Oh,
Now do you
definitely.
find some chords?
Yeah, and then find some chords that are going to support uh, what I think I might try to do.
So they're getting the mood.
Yeah, and that's right, very much a mood. And then, of course, one of the problems with a very diverse group of musicians, there are people who are coming from all sorts of different disciplines or lack of discipline, depending on how you look at it. And and so sometimes it's hard to be selective if I in a diplomatic way to try to find people who maybe are going to go along the same idea. If I feel that strongly that I've got a good idea,
Yes.
then that, and without, because sometimes people, they get affronted if you say, look, no, 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 don't play so much, or no, 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 I don't want any reggae sounds in this. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
That it's like, and I take the risk of being brash
Yes.
and being brusque in a way, and just hope they all forgive me.
Yes.
Be-
But I mean, they do help you a lot. Pete, Dave, Tony, all those people who you work with, Nigel, you've done some stunning songs. You've probably done 20 hits, I should think, out of the 700 that we've done.
Hits.
You've
Well,
worked well with Maria. That
yeah,
Shadows in the Lane.
sometimes they work out well. It's I mean, there's no way that you can deny that the thing about spontaneity is wonderful, and it sometimes cannot be repeated in a very controlled environment. If some of the songs that we did, if we went into a proper professional studio situation
Yeah.
where all of the musicians and and the
Mike, yeah.
instruments were all separated, close mic'd, and maybe separated with sound baffles and stuff like that, so there's no leakage. You're going when one is trying to get a high quality recording, it's very likely that the spontaneity would suddenly be just to evaporate.
Yes.
Now the other thing with spontaneity is it's risky. It is a hit and miss thing.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. You're trying to see what you can do in, oftentimes, running through a song a couple of times with the little group of people that you've assembled a couple of times, and then just trying to record it when really the lyrics are certainly not committed to memory, and you're trying to play the song, give it some valuable presentation or theatrical presentation, interpretation, and read the lyrics at the same time. So it is highly hit and miss,
Yes.
and and when it hits, it's just something that probably cannot be repeated because the instantaneous aspect of all of this. Now that I really like. That I really like. Rather than things being labored and rehearsed over and over and over again, and little tiny people making a big issue about a little tiny arrangement or a break or a stop or a certain figure or something like that. This I do like this. Actually, when I do my recording, my so-called professional recording, oftentimes I don't work in quite the slapdash way that you do, in like the whirlwind of Andrew Lanyon, no. But I don't work a lot slower. And oftentimes the recordings I do, the first, what we would call the guide vocal, which is sort of temporary, it often stays as the final vocal, because even with some mistakes and slurred words or a botched lyric or something like that, it still is hard to better it.
Do you know why I think that is? It's because it's got all the emotion. Whereas if you start to use your memory to correct mistakes on a second take, maybe 30% of your emotional energy is going into recalling and not making those same mistakes again.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, definitely.
But I think one of the successful points of our days is we're not trying to make perfect songs. We're trying to simply capture tunes.
Mm.
So it takes the pressure off doing them perfectly. So people can make mistakes and it doesn't stop us.
No,
So that's good.
it doesn't. I mean, the other thing is when the recording is done, see, I'm always still, seeing it that it's not just like songs that are going to go on a CD that people listen to. I still presume, and I still look forward to, and I haven't seen enough of them, the final product with in used like in a film with an imagery on top of it, and which is further uh, compounding the the mood of it all.
Yes.
And so a lot of times I'm thinking that way, that if I deliver this song in a slow, somewhat turgid way, which is taking quite a risk in a way because it essentially it's going to sound quite dull. It's not going to be sparky and up and jumpy and everything. That I'm sort of imagining that maybe that you will eventually do something like film some sort of beach spume in slow motion that's just like oozing in time with this slow,
Yes.
mournful feeling that the
Yes.
song has.
Yes.
So I'm thinking like that sometimes.
Well, we've done 350 films so far, but the trouble is we've done 700 songs, so we're trailing behind with
Well,
and it's a limitation of the time.
editing
we've
is
got.
very hard
Editing
because
takes a long time.
there's always some high points in some of these songs, but then it just depends that it's you're the arbiter here of what. But I mean, I'm giving you advice about editing, about like how difficult it is in the arts sometimes to know what what there this method and working. I find that in my studio when I'm doing prints and so on like that. That it's hard to tell sometimes until a certain amount of time has passed if I have really hit the target with the work that I've done, so I think that there's going to be some a little bit of wheat from the chaff
Yes,
sorting on your behalf, I
there is.
think.
There is. One more thing, Ian.
Mm.
Going back to the railway one, the gleaming.
Mm.
I was thinking that the gleaming and the moonlight provide a light patches in the sort of general gloom of the song.
Of-
Do those kind of contrasts, visual contrasts, help in a way towards helping make the melody, the shape of the melody?
Yes,
What happened with you? You got tempo first, then you played some chords.
mm,
Now, what were the first notes that you hit on for the first line?
they were probably fairly monotonous. Because the line itself doesn't need a lot of elaboration on it of like complex. It's just
Railway tracks.
the railway tracks are gleaming. Well, you don't need to elaborate that on that an awful lot. The railway tracks are gleaming.
So what did you sing?
It's just the railway tracks are gleaming.
Yes. So what
You
did you?
know,
Can you remember the tune on that?
it was very. I can't
You can't.
quite. I
No,
can't
can't
quite. We
remember.
only ever played it 3 times.
Yes, I know.
I can't
No,
quite
it doesn't
remember
matter.
it.
Because what I'll do in this interview is I'll insert it into the interview so we
Okay.
can see it.
A background or something.
Yeah, or whatever. No, well, Ian, thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, and
Very interesting.
I've enjoyed some of the sessions. I have found to be very enriching.
Thank you.